All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide there, Russ. So again, we've got Russ from Russ Stephens. He's from the Association of Professional Builders. Real excited to have you here today. He's going to talk about how builders grow without working more hours or losing control. And we've also got a special guest speaker here, Brad. And I think at some point we'll get to hear from Brad about his experience and a little bit of insights there. But want to cover a couple quick housekeeping things here. So if we just as usual, if you're not part of the JobTread Pros Facebook group yet, we do want to encourage you to hop in there. Great place to network with others, to ask questions, share feedback, get help, anything that you might need. So definitely check that out. Next up. We've got builder stories. So again, today is a Wednesday, so we had an awesome new episode came out. Every Wednesday we publish a new episode where you can tune in to learn about other builders and contractors and how they've gotten started, the successes they've had, as well as the challenges and how they've overcome them. It's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the usual. So please do tune in, like, subscribe, all the usual to that. We'd really appreciate it. And lastly, JobTread Connect. If you have not gotten your tickets, it's not too late. Be sure to grab them as soon as you can, as well as your hotel reservation. That is booking up. We are working to secure more hotel blocks, but you definitely want to go ahead and get that as soon as you can. It's January 14th to the 16th. We are prepared to have over 1,000 people in Dallas, Texas. These tickets will sell out. They sold out last year pretty early, so again, you got a little bit longer, but please do grab those tickets as soon as you know that you will be able to join us. We would love to have you there. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to Russ here and let him share a little bit of insight with us today. Thanks, Russ, for joining us.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Eric, for the introduction. So, guys, if you are a builder who has ever felt like the only way to grow is to work longer hours or to actually take on more stress, then this session is going to be for you guys. Now, what we're going to explore today is how professional builders are growing stronger. They're growing more profitable businesses, but not by doing more work, but by implementing the right systems that give them back control of both their time and their freedom. And to make this practical, we're not just going to talk theory either. You're going to hear directly from Brad McNorton from Lux Quality Homes, who has actually lived this transformation himself. Now, before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge our partners at JobTread. I first came across JobTread a few years back after I started seeing a lot of chatter in our members' Facebook group regarding this new platform and just how easy it was to use. And a couple of years ago at IBS, I took the opportunity to go over to the guy's stand and introduce myself. And that was a conversation that continued and resulted in a podcast interview on our stand at IBS earlier this year. And listening to Eric being interviewed by our own head of marketing, Will Blunt, it became really clear that both JobTread and APB are very closely aligned in how we see business and how a successful building company needs to be run. And that is why we've ended up becoming partners with JobTread, and we're happy to recommend each other's services in our own groups of residential home builders, which is why I'm here today sharing this information with you guys. Now, if you don't know who we are, a very quick overview. APB has been coaching residential home builders for over 11 years. We've worked with more than 11,000 builders across the US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And what they all have in common is that they reach a stage where their business is busy, but it's just not getting easier. They're working long hours, they're working on tight margins, and they have this constant feeling that there's something missing. Now, they know deep down that there has to be a better way to run a building company, but they're just not 100% sure where to start. And despite all these big promises that are out there in the marketplace from coaches, consultants, and even online marketers. And this is where APB comes in, because we actually give builders the systems, the structure, and the support to scale profitably and lead with confidence. Now, no builder starts out expecting their business to keep them awake at night. And what starts out with the joy, the pleasure of building homes, it slowly turns into a weight of decisions, of emails and constant problem solving. And every issue seems to land back on the business owner's desk. And the challenge, it's not passion. I've never met a builder who isn't passionate about what they do. It's just that the business isn't set up to run smoothly without the owner being involved in every move. Now, when things get busy, most builders do what has always worked for them, and they actually push harder, they dig deeper, they take on another job, they stretch their team, they hire a little bit quicker, and they stay on site a little bit longer, work longer hours. The trouble is that same effort is now what's feeding the problem, and what used to become simple, it actually becomes unpredictable. The company grows in revenue, but it doesn't grow in the same ratio in profit or even become more stable. And this is where the owner starts to feel that the business is actually running them. Now, change begins when you realize that hard work alone is not going to create a better building company. The builders who scale without losing control, they build their companies on three working systems, practical frameworks that will protect their margins, protect their time, and also lead to better decision making. And once those three systems are in place, growth stops feeling risky and it starts feeling predictable and manageable. Now, across every successful building company, three systems appear time and time again. There is always a sales and marketing system that keeps quality leads flowing consistently. And it also ensures that these leads are handled professionally from the very first inquiry all the way through to contract signing. There's also a financial management system that gives the owner visibility and control over every single dollar. And there's also a construction slots and forecasting system that allows the building company to grow, but in a controlled manner instead of a reactive manner. Now, together, these three things, they form the backbone of a predictable building company. So let's start where the growth actually begins, and that is with the sales and marketing system. Now, if you ask almost any builder about marketing, you'll probably hear the same story. Like we tried it, but it didn't work. They spent money on ads, social posts, they built a new website, but the good inquiries, they never seem to flow in afterwards. So this is where they tend to fall back on referrals. And that means every quiet month builds anxiety. It also means you're relying on other people to drive your business forward for you. Now, other builders, they do win work, but they do it on razor thin margins because there is no process in place for qualifying or holding firm on their price. And the problem isn't effort. It's simply a lack of a complete system, one that connects the marketing and the marketing and sales into one single predictable process. Now, professional builders, they don't treat marketing and sales as separate activities. They combine them and run them as one continuous system. And it all starts with a clarity of message. Now, a professional builder knows exactly who they're speaking to, families or professionals who have got the right values, they got the right budget and the right expectation. And every piece of communication speaks directly to that client. The website, the images that are posted, the posts, they're not random updates, but they all tell this consistent story about reliability, quality, and trust. Now, that message builds authority long before you have the very first phone call. And through producing regular helpful content such as short videos, photos of finished homes, project explainers and client testimonials, prospects start to understand just how the building company works, how the builder operates. And by the time they make an inquiry, they're already feeling familiar with that builder and confident in their abilities. And this is where the sales process begins, because every single inquiry gets logged and is qualified against the budget, the location, and the time frame. Now, discovery meetings follow a consistent structure. It's all about questions, listening, and clear next steps. Proposals are presented in a standard format so that nothing is left open to interpretation. And follow-ups always happen on a predetermined set schedule instead of trying to chase up and follow up whenever you've got time. Now, each month results are reviewed. Which inquiries actually turned into meetings, which meetings actually became contracts, and which marketing channels created the most profitable jobs. Now that joined up rhythm, message, content, inquiry, meeting, proposal, follow-up, that is what turns uncertainty into predictability. And when this system is up and running, builders can then stop discounting their projects in order to win work, and they can actually start choosing the right clients with the right projects at the right margins, because both sides of this system, marketing and sales, are now doing their job. And once you get to a point where the work is consistently flowing into your building company, the next challenge is then knowing exactly what that work is worth. And this is when financial management comes into play. Now, a lot of builders don't actually know in real time whether they're actually making money. They might look at the bank balance, and as long as they're managing to pay their bills comfortably, they may assume that they're doing okay. However, it's really important to understand that cash is not profit and profit is not cash. These are two very different and separate things that are not even correlated. Therefore, one is not a good indicator of the other. So by the time the accountant finalizes the book for the previous financial year, it's already too late to course correct. And without financial visibility, it's like flying an aircraft blind. Now, something I was taught very early on in business was that better information leads to better decisions. And that is why so many bad decisions get made within residential building companies every day. It's simply because the information that the builder is acting on and looking at is simply not good enough or accurate enough. Now, professional builders, they run their financials with the same discipline that they would run a building site. They have a very simple rhythm. As on a daily basis, their bank accounts would all be reconciled. They'll be checking liquidity and reviewing outstanding invoices. On a weekly cadence, they'd be reviewing their actuals versus budgets across all their jobs. On a monthly basis, they'd be calculating the work in progress accounting adjustment, otherwise known as WIPA, and they will be closing off their accounts and locking them down. And on a quarterly basis, they'll be updating their budgets and adjusting their strategy based on the workflow trend. Now, they use dashboards in order to read these numbers really quickly. And this way, they always know which projects are running well and which ones need a little more close attention. And this clarity, this is what changes behavior, because instead of reacting to shortages in cash flow, they're always planning ahead in order to avoid those dips. And once the numbers are steady, this is when their attention then turns to the third pressure point, and that is delivery and scheduling. Now, growth will often fall apart at the scheduling stage because jobs will overlap and site supervisors will have to juggle subcontractors. And that means you've got projects that are competing for the same resources, which means they ultimately get delayed. So it's not a lack of effort on the builder's part, it's simply a lack of forward planning. Now, without visibility of upcoming job starts and completions, builders end up with jobs running longer than they really should because of these overlaps and the shortages in resources. And the thing to understand is that every single day or every single extra day that a job will run for, that will eat into your net profit. It's actually a silent profit killer that goes unnoticed in most building companies. Now, the builders who stay in control, they plan their capacity before they start their contracts. So they create a 12-month calendar of construction slots. They have very clear start windows that are locked in, and they're linked to their business plan, but also within that business plan, their capacity for running concurrent projects. Now, when a new client starts, that project is placed into an available predetermined construction slot rather than simply being started straight away because you just want to get going. Now, that way, we always have a balanced construction funnel, but more importantly, we have all our jobs at different stages at any one time. Now, a balanced construction funnel is the best way to maximize profitability within a residential building company. And additionally, what this does is it provides two key components that every builder needs in their sales process, which is scarcity and urgency. Now, when everyone can see the plan, operations they stop feeling like this is crisis management. The business then starts to move into a rhythm because sales and marketing fills the construction slots. Operations then runs at full capacity with no more jobs or no less jobs than capacity, because that is your optimum for profitability. And projects get delivered on time because you've got less unforeseen challenges. And that is what will protect your margins going forward. So as you can see, each system actually supports the next. Marketing and sales create consistent, profitable demand. Finance ensures that every new job actually strengthens your cash flow instead of straining it. And forecasting, that is what keeps your production stable and predictable. And together, these three things, they form a loop of control. The builder always knows what's coming up, what it's going to cost, and when it's going to be handed over. And that's when work becomes steady, margins hold up, and the owner finally starts to feel ahead and all over the business instead of behind it with the business driving them. Now that is, a very, very kind of quick, high level, big picture view. And rather than me explaining what this all looks like in theory, what I want to do is bring in someone who's actually lived this. So you're not hearing about theory here. You're actually hearing from someone that has implemented this. And this is where I want to bring in Brad McNorton from Lux Quality Homes in British Columbia. Brad has built a thriving business that now runs with structure, control, and profitability. But it wasn't always that way, was it, Brad? I mean, do you want to just share the story and the journey that you've been on and what life was like before?
Thanks, Russ. I'd love to share my story. Thanks first, Russ and Eric, for having me on here and gaining my experience on these webinars to try and communicate a little bit better with people in the world. But as Russ said, I'm Brad from Lux Homes. We're located in Kelowna, British Columbia, which I think is the most beautiful part of the world. Like most builders, like what Russ has been talking about when I started, I didn't really have a manual for running a business. I knew where I wanted to go to. I worked for a large company before that had a lot of processes and systems in it. Everybody I talked to there thought they were invincible. They would never lose their jobs. It was a publicly traded company. I quickly realized as I moved through the ranks that they're moving me up because they could save money by hiring somebody a little bit younger with less experience. All I had to do is follow systems and processes. So when I decided to leave there and start my own business, that's kind of one thing that I was trying to figure out how to build those systems and processes. But like I said, when I first started, I had a ton of energy, tools, and the ambition, but I had no real systems, which I think is a massive thing that Russ has been talking about. And, you know, I learned you can't just the hard way, you can't just run on caffeine and chaos for so long before something has to give, right? Um, so before joining APB, I worked essentially every hour possible. I grew up on a farm, so I knew how to work hard, I thought. I'd wake up in the morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. I'd start working on my business a bit, whether I had to get estimates out, put out fires, rejuggle my days. I'd go to site, work for a bit with the guys, get them going, go to another site, go meet potential clients, meet building inspectors for inspections and stuff like that. I'd come home, I'd go on the computer till 10 or 11 o'clock at night and just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Really, one of the turning points was at that point when I started my business was in 2017. My wife was pregnant with our first kid. Um, and I was missing most of those moments after the kid was born. I love my kid Jackson a lot, but I regret a lot of those early years of my business not being there to watch him grow up. When my second one came around, my business was a lot more structured. I was really able to watch my daughter Kenzie kind of grow and that personality kind of come along, right? So, but the benefit, I guess, before we jump into stuff is now I've got all this time to coach my kids hockey and hang out with them and be around more. So I guess, you miss a little bit there, but you can take more when they can remember you a bit more too, right? Um, so yeah, at the beginning of my business, when I started in 2017, I was doing renovations and framing work. When I was working for a larger company, BC had switched to their builder license program. I let my license lapse. Because I let my license lapse, I had to go back and take a bunch of schooling to get it back. And then I had to prove that I had experience. So that's why I had my framing company. I used the framing company to get some of that experience kind of going in. Um, Building these renovations and stuff, which I was really enjoying. I kind of learned that if you work on referrals, build it and they will call doesn't work so well in construction. Um, my margins at the time were pretty decent. It was just me. What I really struggled on was the leads, the processes, and my cash flow was a giant mess. So even though I was making money, I'd always go with these months where I'd have a ton of money in my bank account and months where you just start to see it dwindle down, which is not great for planning anything as you kind of go throughout life. You have a family or want to plan your business and grow. I found that a constant stress. There was a lot of stress within myself. I want to do great work for clients, try and find my niche in the market, and just kind of build a better quality home for people and something that they enjoyed and they weren't fighting over at the end of it or having to sell their home because the house when it was over their budget. So really the turning point was for me was I needed to get systems and processes into my business. That's what I thought my pain point was in my business at the time. And I went looking for a business coach and I went looking for somebody specifically in the construction industry. And I would talk to a lot of different people in the construction industry. Nobody knew of a business coach that worked in construction. Nobody really knew what a business coach was. I happened to be one day on site there complaining to one of my sub trades about it. Can't find anybody. And she goes, I actually know a coach or a guy who worked with a coach. And I go, what's the company? She didn't know who the coach was, but she said the company's name. And I go, oh, they're a reputable company. I like the way they do stuff. I want to be like them one day. So I cold called that company and I said, who's your business coach? And they're like, who are you? And I told them who I was, and they gave me the guy's name of the company. I called him, and then he led me to Clint Best, who's actually my coach right now. I started working with Clint before he went to APB. I believe we kind of worked together in 2019 for probably 8 or 9 months before he switched over to APB. And it's actually a perfect time for him to switch there, I think, anyways, personally, as well for myself. I was debating whether I should jump to APB or not. It's a company based in Australia. What do they know about anything in Canada? I thought all that those guys do over there is wrestle sharks and crocodiles and snakes. And and then, he kind of gave me a back end look into some of their training stuff. And I was like, I need all of this stuff. And it's structured and processed. The structure is the process, and we could come up with an actual plan. And it really worked out well for me, I think, at the beginning. I also honestly believe it worked out well for Clint too, switching over. I've seen him grow a ton. I feel like I've grown a lot as well. So working in the APB completely shifted with how I thought about business. I thought I needed processes and systems. What I really needed to do was really understand my numbers. Me and Clint butted heads over that for a bit. Like I wanted more leads coming in. Clint's like, we're not working on your leads, we're working on your understanding your numbers. My company was growing at the time. I moved from my home office into an actual office. So I'd hired somebody. I was working on my numbers, I thought. I hired my first hire that I hired in my office for overhead work was a bookkeeper because we'd struggled with bookkeepers in the past, giving us the data that we wanted. They'd always give us a number at the end of the year saying we made money, but I want to know job by job, am I making money? What adjustments do I have to make to continue making money on those jobs? Where are we going over on certain line items? So by understanding my numbers, I was able to really start to figure out where my next moves are going to be in my business, which tied into my whole marketing budget, coming up with an actual budget for my ad spend. But at the same time, I was also looking for a project management software. I'd started with CoConstruct. I'd interviewed a bunch of people, thought it was the best software for my business. It worked how I wanted it to, had great client communication, great financials in it. So we started building my systems and my business around CoConstruct and QuickBooks. This really, again, helped us gain the confidence of understanding what it actually costs to run a job and give people accurate budgets kind of moving forward. As we kind of move through all this stuff, where I'm still updating CoConstruct so we can work on fixed price contracts, which is another big thing that Clinton APB started telling us, you got to do the preliminary building process. You got to give people fixed price contracts. You have to know when these numbers are coming in for your cash flow. CoConstruct was able to give us that ability to track stuff. So if we missed an item on a job, we could add it into another line item. The next step in all that was coming up with a CRM for marketing. We went through a few different CRMs until we found one that really works for us. Then as the world's kind of moved along, I don't know, at some point CoConstruct got bought out. We jumped over to Builder Trend was just an absolute nightmare for our business. It didn't work. I had systems and processes built around CoConstruct. We went back to CoConstruct. I didn't like how they weren't inventing anything anymore. They weren't progressing their business, which was one of our values is innovation. So we started looking for another company to kind of work on that. I talked to Clint a lot about this. Like it was a big change we're going to be working on. That's when we found JobTread. JobTread, again, it's like a project management software on steroids, just like APB is a steroid for, I feel like for coaching for business. It's very innovative, I find. We're really able to continue to dial in our numbers and learn how to use that. It's so easy for us to go back now and take a look at what a job's running at like a certain stage. We'll go back and look at all our numbers on there. Did we lose money on this line item? Did we not lose money? Did we make money? Why is all this stuff happening? So we can make adjustments for the next job that we kind of move along to. I kind of want to also go back and just touch on my experience with Clint too. Like I think a lot of people are probably in my position right now that I was in the back of the day. I was a guy who was working in my business and on my business, and we had a lot of conversations about it. And one day Clint said to me, he goes, "Are you a carpenter or are you a effing entrepreneur?" And I looked at him and I was like, "I'm an entrepreneur. I'm no longer a carpenter." And he goes, "What are you going to do about it?" I got in my truck, drove to the Kelowna landfill, and threw my tool belt out. This is a true story. It's a $300 tool belt, threw it out. From that day on, I've never put another one on. And as you can tell, I'm no longer physically fit because of it. But yeah, so that was, I think, like a huge turning point in my business. And, like I sit back and I laugh at this now because there's a lot of things that I have in my business I never thought I would have. And one of them is I have 2 full-time marketing people working for me now that work within the APB systems, coming up with the content. And by understanding the numbers that, everybody, your business coach or Russ is talking about, we come up with a marketing budget for the entire year. And sometimes it's even hard to spend that number, but I've dedicated that number to marketing. So we go find something else to do for it, whether it's we sponsor a tournament or some sort of charity where we get our name out there, or we've started recently advertising on billboards and in airports and stuff like that, or doing different research on the net, different ways to market nowadays. Like it's just all those things that running a business that the big corporations do that we're doing at a little smaller scale. But we've gotten the confidence from the financial clarity to do that stuff, as well as we have that operational control now. And like on the operational side, I went to Europe last year for 2 weeks and I didn't have a phone call that was stressful. I actually had to call into my office to find out what was going on because I thought people took a holiday. That is a truth, like that's the truth. Everything just kind of ran smoothly. When I came back, I asked them, how did it go? Was there any pain points? We kind of worked through some of that stuff, but because we have the systems in there, everybody's able to kind of run. And at that point, too, when I went away to Europe, I had a new office manager start, and she'd never worked for a company. She worked for a large organization before that had this detailed systems that we have. So like everything we do has a system or a process to it and a summary of why we do it. And that's just helped us kind of grow. And, with the way construction's going with AI and stuff now, some of the stuff we're working on in-house to implement, having those systems and processes, I feel like it's just kind of pushed us to the forefront. Another thing we really work on in APB is forecasting and coming up with our yearly plan and our 3-year plan and then the quarterly plan. And if I look back at the last probably year, every quarter something's about AI I want to work on in my business. And if I look back to 2019, 2020, if I would have had those systems in place, my business might be in a different spot now. I might not be doing custom homes and renovations as kind of what we do as for a niche, which I'm extremely happy about. But I kind of missed getting into the multifamily world here in the Okanagan. And I think everything happens for a reason. I was kind of happy for that. I don't think those homes are always built for the quality that I like to do. But I see now by having a plan, I can really focus on AI, and I want to be like a leader in that field for the construction role because I feel like it's lacking for sure. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now with that stuff. Another thing that's I've taken from APB is I used to be loud and very demanding, but then I changed my leadership style as well to like where I would delegate to people and I give them the power to do what they have to do. Like I don't want to hire people where I have to do their work for them. Because if I'm doing that, I may as well go back to working 17 hours a day and just pay them what I'm paying them, and that's just more money for myself. But life is a little bit more than making money all the time. Like I make a good living, but I also want my employees to grow as well so that they can take the next step and help my business grow. A good example for this is what Brody, who was my project manager at the time, still works for me as like our director of construction now. He was in the office asking me a bunch of questions, and I just looked up. I said, "What do I pay you for?" And I told him to make the call. I'll live by your choice. It's about having the trust in people, and that they're following the systems and they believe in your company, and having that culture for people, so that the next time I was growing and I need to hire somebody to move up and to the director of construction type of role. He went out and hired his replacement. So he found somebody that was his avatar that he knew and was able to train them through our systems and processes. So the whole time, our clients are getting that same experience that built my company off of what I did. They're getting that through Brody. They get that through Delaney. And then if she hires somebody else below her later on, they'll continue to get that same experience from people. Outside of APB, and one thing that really helped me work on my leadership was I read this book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL. I thought it's a phenomenal book. If you guys are looking for a book to read, I highly recommend that book. Yeah. So one of the things that the biggest benefit for me personally, and I think my family from this whole process that my business has gone on with APB and our project management softwares and now JobTread, just taking it to another level, is my life and business look totally different now. I quite often I'll leave from work at 1:30, 2:00. I'll grab my son, I'll go coach his hockey. That's on Wednesday, so that'll be later on today. I grab my daughter, I coach her at hockey on Thursdays. I take Fridays off. I pay myself more. The business is running smoothly, cash flow. I don't have an issue with that. It helps me make decisions going forward. My family, we've built a few homes for ourselves now. We are building our own lakefront property now. And this is all because of our business and having those systems and processes in there. And, working. And then not only that, but you have to find the right team to work with to help you make these plans. You need a good bookkeeper, you need a good business lawyer, you need a good accountant, and yourself to make this actual plan to where you want to go to. Because there's a lot of, depending where you live, I find, and talking to different people, there's different tax strategies that go into a lot of this stuff too. And I think that's the big thing too with working on Cost Plus is you have to understand where I am. I got to pay GST and I have to pay that quarterly. So my cash flow, like I'll get a huge check coming to me, but I gotta understand that that's not my money. So it's got to sit into QuickBooks as deposit. So I'm not paying a whole whack load of that to GST right off the bat, because that'll start to affect my cash flow as well. Um, I've seen back to my business, I guess I've seen it grow from smaller renos to now we're doing multi-million-dollar custom homes. Right now we're doing one that's worth, it's gonna be $5 million, another one's $2.5 million. One thing I also really pride myself on this is my team's not burnt out either. I'm not managing 8 or 9 projects at once. We have a certain cap we can do, but I don't want to ever be at that cap because I don't want anybody else in my office to feel stressed out. That's part of our culture. I want people to feel like they can take time off and not have to come back to a crap show. I want people to work their 8-hour days, work their 8-hour days in air quotations, but have fun at work too. And systems and processes, I can't harp on it enough. The
Hmm.
important thing in my business is systems and processes, along with what Clint said, understanding my numbers. Everyone knows their roles. We hold accountability meetings every week, and I ask people for ideas when they work in there and make adjustments from there. But yeah, that's really all I have to talk about right now. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
That's awesome, Brad. I mean, the thing that really stood out to me there as you were talking is you're talking like a business owner. You've transitioned from being a builder, being a technician, to actually being a leader and a business owner, and everything
Well, I don't
you
have a tool belt
you said
anymore.
there. That was I love that. It was like burning the boats, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The tool belt went into the tip. There was another good point that you raised actually, and that was that you right at the beginning you felt you needed more leads, which is what we hear from a lot of builders. But what your coach explained to you was you needed to get your numbers right first because it's very easy to scale an unprofitable building company. It's way too easy, actually, and you just exasperate the problem. So getting the numbers correct first is so important because then that makes it clear the margins that you need to scale up on. And if you don't get that bit right, you're just going to lose a lot more money faster, which unfortunately does happen to a lot of builders. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
interesting.
and I think the interesting point on that too is like I look around now at people who do a lot of cost plus in our industry, or not our industry, should say my area because I understand my area better than other areas. But I see billboards up now, people advertising for, cost plus 7%. And I just laugh. How do you run a business at that? We had
Yeah.
somebody in our office in the summertime talking about a build, and another builder actually told them that they take a deposit of 75% upfront, and that's how they cash flow their business to finish other jobs. And that's industry standard. And Brody was in here during the sales meeting. He just looked at me and his mouth dropped to the floor because I just talked about all those businesses that have gone under by not knowing their numbers, right? So that's goes back to that number
Mm.
planning, how you talk to your clients when they come in, right?
Yeah, and you touched on the reinvestment in marketing and advertising, which was an important point as well, because it can be quite a shock just how much money you need to reinvest to create that demand, because business is fundamentally all about supply and demand. So this is why we we give builders a system where they can actually cap their supply while they focus on growing their demand. And to do that, the magic number is 3%, which to a lot of people that haven't invested high levels into paid advertising, yeah, if they're running a $6 million building company, you're talking about $15,000 a month. And that sounds like a huge waste of money for someone that's maybe surviving on referrals or getting all the work they need. But we don't want builders to have all the work they need. We want them to have twice as much as they need because increasing that demand to levels beyond they can supply. This is what then grows the margins at a significant rate, and we've proven it with data. time and time
Can I
again.
speak on that for a second, Russ?
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't touch on this in there. I thought I was running out of time, but there was a one of the turning points we had is we had the numbers when I was growing were they were good. We had COVID, everything was beautiful, and then after COVID, our interest rates here in Canada went through the roof, and I found that we had a lot of people backing out of their contracts. Um, what we did is actually off the APB model to create people who want to have a construction slot. I said I wouldn't take on any more work for 7 months. Finished off our jobs, and we set our next slots in the next summer. And that created like people who really wanted to work with us. And then our margins on those were the first jobs where we were starting to get over like 35% margins on custom homes. So it kind of goes into that if you have that double the workflow, you can charge more money. And that was a huge turning
Mm.
point. We just turned it around differently because we had enough money in the bank that I could kind of bankroll for those few months if I needed to.
Yeah, and as well, something we hear a lot of is builders can be a bit concerned that if they don't start a job straight away, then the client will go elsewhere. So they feel that they have to take on more work than they probably really wanted to, rather than using construction slots rigidly and creating this pent up demand. But what's your experience of that? Telling the client you can't start for 6 months or a year even.
If they say that's fine with us, then they're the right client for us. If they want to start right away, we're not the right client. We have a through our sales process that we have a flow that we have to go through. We have to go through our preliminary billing agreement first. And because of the houses we build, we don't build cookie cutters. We don't build the same house twice over. We can't start next month anyways, right? So if you want us to start next month, we've got to plan your project at some point. So we're just going to plan it as we build, and that's where you're going to have all your cost overruns. And
Mm.
then it creates all that stress we find too, like you're trying to plan as you're going through. You mentioned that if the job's sitting empty, it's costing you cost overhead. We figured that out as well. So like through our change order process, that when we do it, we'll say that your plumbing fixture is going to cost you $200, but it's going to delay the project 2 weeks. So through our pricing for profit calculator, I know how much that job's going to cost me in overhead for that job based off our schedule. So I'm tacking on three, four, five, $600 a day. So now that plumbing fixture that was $300, it might actually cost you $2,500. So is that something you actually want to take on, right? So, but through the way we communicate through JobTread and everything, our clients can see the schedule ahead of time, what's coming up. We do talk to them weekly as well if they're because we work with a lot of people out of town. We give them a progress report. Is there any changes that you want to make in the next couple of months to stuff so that we're not having the project sit anyways, right? So if there was a change they want to make.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There is a cost per day. Applies to every job. It applies. This is how you price your jobs in the first place by calculating what that number is and calculating it over the timeline of the job. But important to note, as you mentioned, that any variation, any change order is going to push that timeline out, is going to bring in this hidden cost, and it just destroys net profit over a period of time. Well, I think what we'd like to do is just invite any questions now. If we have any questions from the audience, I think we might have a few in here. But yeah, go ahead and type in your questions if you do have anything that you'd like to ask, Brad.
It
Well,
looks like
we've got him.
we got one in here from Ryan. He's asking for Brad, how long from first coaching session to healthy systems running?
I would say it depends how much time and effort you want to put into it. To build the whole thing out probably took a year, I would say. But we went into like every aspect of the systems and the processes. But we just started small. Like my first one I ever did was how to drop off a building permit and tested it. And then as we were kind of going through, my team was growing. We used to have meetings in this back room back here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we'd sit down. We'd talk about what systems and processes were next, and everybody would do 3 a week type thing. And then we'd sit back here. I can't remember. I think it was actually the Friday was the day we'd test them all. So whoever wrote it, two people would be in the back testing it to see if there was missing steps in there. But it's a time investment for yourself to get time back at the end and help you grow.
Awesome. We have
Yeah.
another one here. Being that you typically build custom homes, how do you forecast for 12 months?
It's based off of the leads. We have a construction slot planner that we put in there. So every time somebody signs a preliminary building agreement, they go into that construction slot planner.
And I guess you're looking at the schedule, the same time you're doing the pricing and
Correct.
calculating the timeline
Yep.
as well. Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
it sometimes it's tough too because when you first get a person to come in, they want to build a custom home. Like we've got one that's 2.5 million, one that's 5 million. Obviously, those take different lengths of time too. So we're kind of trying to figure out a schedule and we're talking like when do you guys want to be in? We kind of work backwards from that too to see if it's realistic. And then we tell them, I don't think that's realistic. We got to start a month later, or we've got these other jobs starting at this time here. So they're going to command a bit more attention because getting out of the ground where we work is the hardest part because of our hills and the lakes and everything, right? So
Yep. So Russ, you got one over here. Steve was asking, this seems to be only for builders, and I think he's referring to just the APB program as a whole. Could you touch on that?
Yeah, we are dedicated to builders. A lot of the stuff that we teach are fundamental principles. But all of our trainings, they are directly geared towards residential home builders, new homes and remodelers. So the language we use, the systems like construction slots, a lot of this stuff, the pricing for profit calculator, which helps you with pricing your jobs at margins that deliver a net profit. These have all been built specifically for residential home builders. So although there are fundamental principles that apply to all businesses and other businesses, we do focus just purely on the residential builders.
Awesome. And you had another one over in the chat. What did you say was the magic number as a percentage to put into marketing?
Yeah, the magic number is 3%, and this has been backed up by data time and time again. The builders that reinvest 3% into marketing and advertising not only have the highest gross margins, but even when you factor that 3% in as a fixed expense, they still come out with the highest net margins. And this is all because of the excess demand that they generate. Now, we do have builders that go beyond the 3%, actually reinvest more than 3% because they're on a growth trajectory. Their margins aren't as strong, but that's fine because they're going for growth. But when you get to this consistent basis, and that 3%, the split between marketing and advertising, if your marketing is not mature, you're probably going to invest about 2% in marketing, 1% in advertising. But as your marketing becomes more mature, those numbers will flip and you'll be investing about 1% in marketing, but 2% in advertising. And what's really important is you continue with this strategy even when you are booked out and you don't need the leads, because it does help. It enables you to keep pushing your margins up and also getting really ultra picky about your clients. So all those people that you've signed up in the past that you kind of knew, I knew I shouldn't have signed them. That never happens. You never find yourself in that position. You're never afraid to say no to a client because you can only build for 50% of the people that are going through your prelim process.
Yeah, you had Christopher here was the 3% of gross margin or revenue.
Revenue,
Revenue.
and importantly, it's predicted revenue. So if you're looking to grow, if you're at 10 million, say you're looking to go to 12 million in the next year, you're looking at 3% of that 12 million. It's go to where the puck is going.
Yeah. All right. Sheila wants to know, Brad, how big is your team now, including office people, marketing, project managers, workers that work on job site?
I have 14 people.
Okay. And Cindy, do you have your pricing for things that hold up the schedule listed up front, or do you only quote that to the customers as they come up?
We quote everything ahead of time through our preliminary billing agreement. So we work with our draftsperson, engineers, and an interior designer to pick out your whole house so that we don't have a lot of things that we have to price out throughout the build unless you want to make that change. But we communicate as we kind of go through our scheduled walkthroughs. If you want to make a change now, for your plumbing fixtures, now's the time to do it because it's going to end up potentially costing you more money in overhead if you decide to do it later on. We've had clients in the past, ask for a change after the bathroom's tile. Then we got to change out the diverter in the back, and we're cutting through tile. It's super expensive to fix that properly after too, right? So we try to do everything up front. We give them all the renderings that they want to envision what they're moving into. It gets them excited. It also holds us accountable to what we're giving them in that fixed price contract. They get that actual visual along with all the specifications and everything through there.
And Alan asked here, is the recording of this going to be published? And yeah, we will hopefully get the recording published later today. It'll be in the JobTread help desk as well as on our website, on our webinars page, or you can just go find it on our YouTube. All right, Ryan has asked, do you have square foot pricing for your new builds to get the budget conversion started with leads? Budget conversation started with leads?
Yeah, we have a square foot number for what we build and to our standards and our overhead. We're we're not the cheapest builder by any means in our area. And I always ask people when they come in, they want to work with me as a sub trade, why, and they tell me they're not the cheapest. I always ask them why. And if they can't tell me why, then if they say it's because of the quality, everybody says it's because of the quality, but I can tell them it's the systems and processes that we have and the experience that they're going to get. People want to, when they're spending this kind of money with me, I want them to enjoy spending the money and love it and not hate it at the end. But typically for where I work right now, like our budget ranges from $450 a square foot to $525 for our custom homes, and our luxury stuff starting around $750 and up from there. Like we've done a house that cost $1,100 a square foot.
So we are now.
All right. Any other questions there, guys and gals?
Can I just back up to that square foot question too?
Yeah.
Like because we have all that data tracked in in JobTread now, we know how much those line items or subsections going to cost roughly per square foot too. So that really helps us when we're trying to give out budgets to our interior designers to go shopping for stuff too. We can say, well, this portion of the house should cost about, they like this stuff based on a previous project we did, it should cost about 12% of the build. You have 12% to find all these finishes in here, right? So
137-127.
All right. Any other questions, everyone? We're getting close to the top of the hour.
Our account will be lots quality homes and then brackets.
I got Brad's sounds like you got your sales guy in the background there. Is he doing a deal right now?
you can hear Brody. Yeah, guy's so loud.
Well, look, we really appreciate you guys coming on, sharing this insight. Russ, it's obviously been a great partnership with you and your team. It's been a pleasure to work with you guys. I like you said early on, I think we really share a lot of the same, values and desires to see contractors, builders be able to build very successful businesses. But, as you know better than everyone, sometimes it does take, investing in a little bit of professional development, coaching, joining that support group, that can help you. I mean, again, just being able to hear from Brad and how he has taken his business, multiple levels up from where he started. I mean, that really is a great showcase of how you and your team can help, these contractors and builders to build, much better businesses. And so, again, we're honored to be partners with you. I know we've been sending out people asking them to submit the annual Sourcey survey that'll be published, I believe, at IBS this year. So hopefully we'll get a good showing of the JobTread votes that that I know come in kind of showing the percentage of the market. But again, just really appreciate everything that you and your team have done, Russ, and everything that you do for our contractors and communities and here in JobTread means a lot to us, and we really appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Eric. We truly enjoy the partnership and the relationship that we have, and we always like to say to builders, unfortunately there is no silver bullet here. It does take a bit of grit, determination, drive, and hard work to put this stuff into place, as Brad has experienced and been through. But that is a good thing, because if it was too easy, everyone would be doing be doing it. So yeah, this is a great barrier to entry. Yeah, it does take a bit of work, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to thank Brad as well for sharing your story. I mean, every builder we work with, they always start in a similar place, you know, to what Brad described. They're busy, they're stressed, they're reactive, but it is the builders who install these systems. They're the guys that finish in a completely different place. They're leading a company that runs on structure rather than chaos. They gain more profit, more control, more freedom, and really that is the shift that we want for every professional builder. So yeah, if what you've heard today does resonate, the next step is pretty simple. You can book a free discovery call with our team. There's no cost, there's no obligation. It's just a chance to talk about your building company, and we'll help you to clarify your goals. We'll uncover what's holding you back, and we'll show you exactly what it does take to implement these systems into your own building company. And by the end of the call, you're going to walk away with a clear plan, and then you can decide if you'd like help with moving forward to implement this stuff, or whether you feel you can do it yourself. But either way, you're going to have some real clarity after this conversation. So yeah, thanks again, Eric, for yeah, enabling us to share this story with everyone that's joined us today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming on, and thanks Brad again for doing another webinar with us. You know, you'll be a pro by the end of the year, I'm sure, if we keep this up.
Maybe I'll speak at JobTread Connect.
Hey, there you go. I think we've already gone past the call for proposals this year, but
Perfect.
I would love to see you and Brody both you know, submit for that, and you know, love to get you on the stage again, share the same story with our whole community, because it's a good one, man, and you guys are doing great work, and you know, it's just been a privilege to be a partner here with you, even just your little software guy on the side there. You know, it's pretty fun seeing your success and how you guys have been able to build such a great business.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. You're a great day. I guess we're middle of the week. We will get this published later today. So, you know, if you want to share it out with others, rewatch a couple of the points early on, you know, we'll have that up hopefully in next couple hours. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.